In today's video, I'm going to do a walkthrough of the Math with Calculator section of the May 2021 SAT. I've scored perfectly on back-to-back SAT math sections, and as I go through these questions, I'm going to show you the most efficient way to solve each and every one. So with all that being said, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started with question number 1. It takes 6 hours to travel m miles. At this rate, how much time in hours will it take to travel 5m miles? What we want to do here is set up a ratio. So we know it takes 6 hours to travel m miles, and we're going to set that equal to the amount of time in hours that it takes to travel 5m miles. Now from here, we're going to put in x for the variable we want to solve for. Keep in mind, h just represents hours. So all we're going to do is multiply each side by 5m then. So multiply each side by 5m. Our m's are going to cancel. And we see we have 5 times 6h, which will give us 30h equals xh. We know h just represents hours. Therefore, x, which is the amount of time it takes to travel 5m miles, has to be 30. So our answer for number 1 will be A. All right, moving on to number 2. If 2x plus 4 equals 100, what's the value of 6x plus 12? Well, what I want to look for here is a ratio. I know that 2x plus 4, if I were to multiply all of that by 3, then that's going to give me 6x plus 12. So in that case, all I got to do then is multiply 100 by 3 as well, and that's going to end up giving me 300, which is going to be answer choice B. All right, moving on to number 3 now. A length of 8 furlongs is equivalent to how many meters? Use 1 furlong is equal to 201 meters. Well, I know that I've got 8 furlongs, which I'll just represent as F. Now, I want to get rid of F and convert it to meters, so I'm going to have to multiply then by the fact that 1 furlong is 201 meters, and I see my answer there is going to be 1608. Okay, so my answer there is going to be D. It's going to be 1608 for number 3. All right, now from here we can go and move on to number 4. So we've got the curve models the number of fish in a certain population. Which of the following is closest to the number of fish in the population 16 months after January 2015? All right, well, we see that our x-axis is number of months after January 15. We need to go 16 months after that. From there, we just draw a line up, and we see, once we go over to our y-axis, that value is going to be 15,000. So our answer there is going to be C for the number of fish in the population 16 months after January 15. All right, number 5 now. What is the ratio AB to BC? Well, we see that A to B is going to be 20, and then we see B to C, which I'm going to put in green here, is going to be 5. So BC is 5, AB is 20. Therefore, our ratio of AB to BC is going to be 20 to 5. So our answer there is going to be B for number 5. All right, let's move on to number 6. Each of the whole numbers from 1 to 20 is written on one of 20 identical pieces of paper. The pieces of paper are then put into a hat and mixed together. If a piece of paper is selected at random from the hat, what is the probability that the number on it is a multiple of 3? Now, a lot of people are going to be tempted to go ahead and pick 1/3 here, but that's incorrect. Now, the reason why is because 20 is not a multiple of 3 here, okay? We're going from 1 to 20. If it was 1 to 21, then 1/3 would be correct. Because it's 1 to 20, we can't just say it's going to be 1/3. So instead, what we're going to do here is we're going to write down what our multiples of 3 from 1 to 20 are. Those are going to be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. Okay, so we see there that's going to be 6 over 20. So our answer there is going to be C for number 6. All right, moving on to number 7. The table shows the maximum depth in meters of the 5 deepest ocean trenches. What is the range in meters of these 5 trench depths? Okay, keep in mind that our range is going to be our maximum minus our minimum. So our maximum minus our minimum. We see our maximum is going to be 11,033, and then we see our minimum is going to be 10,047. So that difference right there is going to be right around just under 1,000. We see our number that's just under 1,000 is going to be D, so D will be our correct answer for number 7. All right, moving on to number 8 now. So we have the relative yield of corn expressed as a percent and soil pH were recorded for 5 samples. For the 5 samples, the relative yield of corn reached a maximum when the soil had a pH of 6.8. So we're looking for a maximum at a pH of 6.8, and then it decreased as the soil pH increased. Which scatter plot could represent the data? Well, if we look at answer choice A, it doesn't have that maximum at 6.8. Okay, 6.8 would be like right around there, and we see there's no maximum there, so A is wrong. Looking at B, we see once again there's no maximum at 6.8. The maximum there is around looks like 5. So B is incorrect as well. Looking at C, we do have a maximum at 6.8, and we see it drops off after that, which of course it would since it's a maximum. So C will be our correct answer. And if we look at D at 6.8, we also see there's no maximum because D's maximum is at 7.5. All right, moving on to number 9 now. So after a new car is purchased, the value of the car is modeled by a function that decreases exponentially over time. Which of the following could describe how the value of the car changes each year? All right, well, if we look at answer choices A and B, neither of them are exponential, okay? A says each of the value of the car is $800 more than the previous year. That's linear, not exponential. Same thing with B, except it's just $800 less. Once again, that's linear, not exponential. Answer choice C says the value of the car is 8% more than the previous year. Key thing here is that it has to be 8% less since we are depreciating or decreasing the value of the car over time. And 8% less is an exponential function, it does present an exponential decrease over time. So our answer there is going to be D for number 9. All right, number 10 now. The daily high temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit for a city in the month of February in 2017 are summarized in the box plot shown. Which of the following is closest to the median of the high temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit of the city in February 2017? In this case, we just got to find the median. We know that the median of a box and whisker plot like this is going to be that middle dash mark in your box, and we see that that's going to be at 42. So our answer there is going to be B for number 10. All right, number 11 now. The solution to the given system of equations is A and B. What's the value of 3A plus 3B? Anytime I see I have stacked equations like this, I'm going to look to add or subtract to get to my answer. In this case, my answer isn't a singular variable. It's 3A plus 3B. And I see if I add these two equations together, then I'm going to end up getting 3A plus 3B. So all I got to do then is add my 17 to my 19. And then that is going to end up giving me, looks like 36. So my answer there is going to be D for number 11. All right, number 12 now. In triangle ABC, the measure of angle C is 90 degrees. Okay, so I know I've got a right triangle. If the sine of A is 3/5, what's the cosine of B? That's also going to be 3/5. How do I know that within 1 second? I'll go ahead and show you, because if you can memorize this, it'll save you a ton of time, as I just showed. We see that we've got our right angle, which will be C. We can just put angle A up top, or yeah, we'll have angle A up top, we'll have angle B over here. We see that we've got the sine of A is 3/5. Well, what's the sine? That's our opposite over our hypotenuse. So our hypotenuse will be 5. The opposite of angle A is going to be 3. Next up, we're trying to find the cosine of B. Well, what's the cosine of B? Well, that's going to be the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So we see we're going to end up having the same denominator. Okay, the denominator is the same. Now our numerator is also going to be the same, because if we look at the adjacent side length to B, we see that that's also 3. So that's how we always know that if we have a right triangle and we're told the sine of A is equal to something, well, the cosine of B then also has to equal that. So that's a little rule you can memorize to save a ton of time on the SAT math section for both the math with calculator and with the without calculator. All right, number 13, for the linear function f, the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane passes through the points 0, 2, and 2, 6. Which equation defines f? Well, we can go ahead and do rise over run to find our slope. We see that our y value goes from 2 to 6, which is an increase of 4. And then our x value goes from 0 to 2, which is an increase of 2. So we see our slope then is going to be 2x. The only answer choice with a slope of 2x is C, so my answer there is going to be C. All right, moving on to number 14 now. The 2017 Wyoming State Senate had 30 elected members consisting of Democrats and Republicans. Let D represent the number of Democrats who vote yes for a bill. Let R represent the number of Republicans who vote yes for a bill. For a bill to pass, more than half of the 30 senators must vote yes. Which of the following inequalities represents all possible values of D and R for a bill to pass? Key thing here is it has to be more than half. Not just greater than or equal to, it has to be more than, okay? So it can't be any answer with that equal sign in it. So we can go ahead and get rid of C and D. We also know it has to be more than 15 because it has to be more than half. And we also know that half of 30 is 15. Okay, so our answer there is going to have to be A for number 14. All right, number 15 now, we've got x squared minus 2x plus c is equal to 0. In the given equation, c is a constant. If the equation has exactly one solution, what's the value of c? Key part here is that there's exactly one solution. So to do this, what we want to do is take a look at x squared minus 2x. From there, we're going to factor out an x, and then we'll have x minus 2. Okay, so now we've rewritten our equation. Now we need to find our vertex. Our vertex, since this graph has that positive x squared, we know that our graph's going to open up. So where our vertex is going to give us that minimum. Now we need our minimum to equal 0, because if our minimum equals 0, then we see there's only going to be one solution. So to find that minimum, we got to find our vertex. So we see that we would have x equals 0, and we'd also have x minus 2 set equal to 0, which in that case would give us x equals 2. Okay, so now we found our two zeros. From here, we know that our midpoint between our two zeros is going to give us our vertex. So therefore, our vertex, our x coordinate is going to have to be at 1. So now we can just plug 1 into x squared minus 2x. We know that 1 squared is going to give us 1. And then we'll have minus 2 times 1, which is going to give us minus 2. Okay, we see that that's going to end up giving us negative 1. So negative 1 then plus c has to equal 0. Well, c's got to be 1 then. So our answer there's got to be C. All right, moving on to number 16. All right, so we've got length in miles and then cost in millions of dollars. So the table gives some values of possible lengths x in miles of a monorail system and their corresponding cost to build f of x in millions of dollars. Which of the following equations models this relationship? All right, well, what I'm going to look at here is first finding my slope, because that's going to be really easy. I see I go up by 405 as I go up by 5 in my length. Okay, I do the same thing here. So as we can see, we've got linear relationship. Now, keep in mind 405 over 5, I can see that that's going to equal 81. So 81x has got to be my slope. So my answer there's got to be A. Also, you can see if you were to go back by 405 or back by 81 times 5, you're going to end up back at 0. So you see there's going to be no y-intercept either. So our answer there's got to be A for 16. All right, number 17, a set of data is represented by the scatter plot in the portion of the xy plane. Which of the following linear equations best models the data? Key thing that we want to pay attention to here is this is a broken axis, okay? We're not starting at 0 for our y-axis or our x-axis. That's what's going to make a lot of people get this wrong, is they're not going to notice that, but we did. Okay, so we see that we're going to be starting right around 25, and we see that we're going to be ending probably right around 16. Okay, so we're going to go down by like 9, and that's going to be as we go over. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put that on here. We're going down 9, so -9 for our y, but we're going over from 8 to right around 26. So that's going to be a change of about 18. So -9 over 18, we see that's going to have to be a negative slope. So we can go ahead and get rid of b because b is a positive slope. Answer choice is C and D. We see we're going down by 6x. That's way too much. Okay, so our answer there has to be A. That's the only thing that's in the ballpark of what we have. All right, moving on to number 18 now. A certain book is available from a publishing company in both hardcover and paperback. The table shows the revenue and cost in 2016 for each of the hardcover and paperback books produced by the company. In 2016, the total cost for 200 of the books that were sold was between 2,200 and 2,400. Which of the following could be the number of hardcover books that were sold? Key thing we need to recognize here is that our hardcover books plus our paperback books is going to equal 200. Okay, that relationship is really important because if you were to just take these numbers in answer choices A through D and multiply them by the cost for a hardcover of 14, you're going to get the wrong answer because you have to take into account that if we're selling 120 hardcovers, that means we're also selling 80 paperbacks. Okay, so 80 paperbacks. So that relationship can be modeled by H plus P equals 200. Next thing we need to take into account is our total cost. And keep in mind we're dealing in cost, not revenue here. Okay, so that's going to be 14 times every hardcover we sell plus $10 times every paperback we sell. And we know that that's got to be less than or equal to 2,400. Okay, but it's also got to be greater than or equal to 2,200. So let me just go ahead and move this equation to my right a minute. Okay, we know that that's also got to be greater than. Okay, so go ahead and write this out. We see that's also got to be greater than or equal to 2,200. From here, what we want to do is we want to substitute in for P. Okay, so we see that if we subtract H from each side of our top equation here, we're going to get P equals 200 minus H. So let's go ahead and substitute that in. Okay, so when we do that, we're going to have 10 times 200 minus H. 10 times 200 minus H, and that's got to be greater than or equal to 2,400. I'm sorry, that's got to be less than or equal to 2,400 still. From here, we distribute our 10 to our 200 as well as to our H. So 10 times 200 is going to give us 2,000. We're ultimately going to end up subtracting that from each side, but I'll go ahead and wait and I'll write out my steps just so you can see it more clearly. Okay, now from here, what we want to do is we want to subtract that 2,000 from each side. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. When we subtract 2,000 from 2,200, that's going to leave us with 200. Okay, so subtract 2,000. And then we're going to subtract 2,000 from our middle as well, subtracting 2,000 from our right side of our inequality as well. Okay, so now we've got 400 on our right side here. And then in the middle, we're going to end up with 14H minus 10H, which will give us 4H. Now from here, you can find your answer because you know that to get to 200 from 4H, you have to multiply by 50, right? You can also just divide each side by 4 here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and divide each side by 4. So from here, we see that H will have to be between 50 and 100. Only answer choice between 50 and 100 is going to be answer choice A. So A will be our correct answer for 18. All right, moving on to number 19. An analyst estimates that the cost of each of the paperback books will increase 50 cents each year after 2016. Which of the following models the cost C in dollars of each of the paperback books T years after 2016? Well, we know that they were initially costing $10 per paperback book. We're increasing that by half a dollar each year, so our answer there's got to be answer choice C. All right, number 20 now. So we've got line M is defined by y equals -3/4 x plus 2. Line P is parallel to line M in the xy plane and passes through the point 4 and -3. Which equation defines line P? If line P is parallel, it's got that same slope. So we got to have that -3/4 x. All our answer choices do, so we just got to solve for our y-intercept. Now we can go ahead and plug this into our equation. Okay, this is our point slope equation. That we got y is equal to -3/4. And then it's going to be x minus what our x value was, which in this case is 4. And then it's going to be plus whatever our y value was, which in this case is -3. So we could just write that as -3. So -3. All right, from here we can go and distribute that -3/4 x. That's just going to give us our slope. And then -3/4 times -4 is going to give us +3. So we can go ahead and rewrite this as y equals -3/4x. And then we're going to have +3 minus 3, which we see will cancel. So our answer there's got to be answer choice B. So B is our correct answer for number 20. All right, moving on to question number 21. Which of the following additional measurements to the triangle provides enough information to determine the length AB? Now keep in mind, in order to define the side length AB, which I'm just going to mark as X, all we would need is either side length A to C or one of the angle measures for angle B or angle C. If we get one of those angle measures, we can use the sine, cosine, or tangent to solve. And if we get the other side length, we'd be able to use the Pythagorean theorem. So our answers here would be both both 1 and 2, which is going to give us answer choice C. Okay, we could use either 1 or 2. All right, moving on to number 22. The solution to which system of inequalities is represented by the shaded region of the graph? Well, first thing that I see is I have got this line, which is going to be y has to be less than or equal to y has to be less than or equal to 7. So that's going to be my first equation. Now if I look at my other equation, okay, I'm going to actually mark my other equation in green here. So I'll put this in green. We see that we're going to have y has to be greater than or equal to, and we see we have an intercept at y equals 1. Okay, so our x-intercept is at y equals 1. So we see that that equation then is going to go up by, looks to be 2x, so y is equal to 2x plus 1. Now keep in mind we have to be above that, so that's going to be y must be greater than or equal to. Now we just find which answer choice matches those two equations, and we see that that is going to be answer choice B. So B will be our correct answer for number 22. All right, moving on to question number 23. So Paulina has 28 books in her collection. The frequency table summarizes the number of pages in each book. If she buys a new book that has 62 pages, how will this impact the mean and median numbers of the pages of the books in her collection? Key thing we need to understand here, if we're adding in a book with 62 pages, that's going to be a frequency of 1 because we only have one of them. We know that that's going to raise our average, okay? The mean is just the average. So if we're adding in a book that has a number of pages that's higher than our averages already, which we know this will be, that's going to raise our mean. So our mean is going to increase, therefore we can get rid of answer choice B and we can get rid of answer choice D. Now, is our median going to stay the same or is our median going to increase? Our median won't decrease, but it may increase or stay the same. So to solve for that, let's go ahead and find our medians in both scenarios. So we'll go ahead and start by doing it in our new scenario. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and group all of these frequencies together because that's going to give me 12. Next, I'm going to group these frequencies together because that's also going to give me 12. Now from here, I see that I would end up taking away 2 from the left of this 5 and then 2 from the right. So my third term, or my third frequency within 50 is what my median is going to be. And I see that the number of pages there would be 50. Okay, so I'm going to put an A for after. Okay, we know the after median. I'll put AM for after we made this change, median. We see that that's going to be 50. Now, what about before we make this change? Well, if we're going to do it before we make this change, all it's going to do is shift our frequency over this way, which we see is instead of getting rid of 2, we'd only have gotten rid of 1. But even though we got rid of 1, we're still going to be in this 50 number of pages for our median. So our median isn't going to change. Okay, so we have before making change. Okay, we're still going to be at 50. Okay, so our answer there is that our median will not change. So our answer median is going to stay the same, but our mean is going to increase. So our answer is going to be C for number 23. All right, moving on to number 24 now. We have a recipe requires F cups of flour. Arnold accidentally used 50% more flour than the recipe required. How much flour did Arnold use in terms of F? He was supposed to use F amount of flour, but he used 50% more, so that's going to be represented by 1.5 F. So our answer there is going to be D for number 24. All right, 25 now. We've got a table, we've got triangles, we've got rectangles, blue and red. The table shows distribution of objects in a collection by shape and color. If a triangle is selected at random, key part there is that it was a triangle selected at random, so we're looking at that column I marked in blue. What's the probability that the selected triangle is red? We see that our red triangles are 5, so we're going to have a total then of 5 out of 12 since 7 plus 5 is 12, so our answer there would be D for number 25. All right, moving on to number 26. 26 says a group of students participated in a study. It was determined that for each hour of experience performing a certain task, the time necessary to complete the task decreased by 5%. Wendy took 30 minutes to complete the task with no experience. Which function models the amount of time t in minutes that it will take Wendy to complete the task after X hours of experience? All right, well, key thing here is that each time that she gains an hour of experience, we're decreasing the amount of time it takes by 5%. So we're not going to multiply by 0.05 each time. We're going to multiply by 0.95, okay, because that's showing that decrease of 5%. Okay, 0.05 would be showing a decrease in the amount of time it takes her of 95%. Okay, it's only a 5% decline. Therefore, our answer's got to be C. All right, number 27. An equation for the graph is shown. We got y is equal to x minus 1 times x plus b, where b is a constant. What is the value of b? Key thing to understand here, in order to solve for the value of b really quickly here, what we can do is we can just think if x was 0, okay? Because if we put in 0 for x, we're just going to have b times negative 1, okay? Now 0 for x, well, where's that? That's our y-intercept, which we see is at negative 3. Therefore, then, we see that negative 1 times b, which is just negative b, is equal to negative 3. Well, what's the value of b then? B has to be 3. So our answer there's got to be A. So that's a really quick way to solve number 27. All right, moving on to question number 28. A school is paid $315 for recycling C pounds of aluminum cans and P tons of paper. The equation 0.5C plus 60P equals 315 represents this situation. What is the interpretation of 60P in this context? Well, that's going to be the total amount that they are getting paid for the amount of paper that they are recycling. So if we take a look at our answer choices, A says the total weight in tons of paper recycled. No, that would be simply the value of P. And then we got B, the total amount in dollars the club is paid for each ton of paper recycled. Well, that would only be 60. Okay, that's ignoring the P. And then C, the total weight in tons of all the aluminum. 60P is not dealing with aluminum at all. And then D, the total amount in dollars the club is paid for P tons of paper recycled. Yes, that's our correct answer. Okay, answer choice A would be if it was just asking about P. Answer choice B would be if it was just asking about 60. All right, moving on to question number 29. What is the sum of the solutions to the given equations? We have x minus 3 squared is equal to 81. So what this is going to turn into is an absolute value problem, and I'll show you why. We got a square root each side to get rid of our square. Okay, that's going to end up giving us x minus 3 is equal to 9. But what we have to take into account here is that 9 could be a positive 9 or it could be a negative 9, okay, because this x minus 3 is getting squared. Negative 9 squared is going to give you 81, and so is 9 squared. So what this turns into then is x minus 3, or absolute value, is equal to 9. So from there, we're going to have x minus 3 then equals 9, and we're also going to have x minus 3 equals negative 9. From here, we're just going to go ahead and add 3 to each side. So we'll add 3 to each side, and that's going to end up giving us x equals 12. So that's going to be one of our answers. And we're also going to end up getting, when we add 3 to negative 9, x equals negative 6. Okay, so now we've got our two answers. Now, are either of those our correct answer? No, because we need the sum of the solutions. When we add those two together, 12 plus negative 6 will give us 6 as our answer. So our answer for 29 will be B. All right, moving on to question 30. Each of the three data sets represented by the three dot plots has 15 values. The medians of data sets A, B, and C are A, B, and C respectively. What is the relationship between A, B, and C? So we got to solve for the medians in each of these data sets. So I'm going to start with data set A. So what I'm going to do here is looks like if I get rid of 7 from each side, I'll be able to find my median pretty quickly. Also, I know that because it says each of the three dot plots has 15 values. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of 7 from each side. Okay, so I'm getting rid of 7 from each side. I see my median there for data set A is going to be 5. Do the same thing with data set B. Okay, I'll get rid of 7 from the left and then also from the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see my median is going to be at 5 once again. So I've got two medians of 5 so far. Looking at data set C now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'll get rid of 7 right here. So I'll group all of these together. Okay, and then I'll group my other 7 together. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see my medians also at 5. So all my medians will be 5. They will all be equal. My answer there is going to be D for number 30. All right, moving on to question number 31. The side length of square ABCD is twice the side length of square EFGH. If the area of square EFGH is 9, what is the area of the square ABCD? Key thing to understand here is that your area is your length squared. So if we're doubling our lengths, well, then we would have 2L squared, and keep in mind that 2L is in parentheses. That's going to ultimately end up giving us 4L squared. Okay, is going to be our new area. So as we can see, we're multiplying by a factor of 4. So that means we have to multiply our 9 then by 4 to get our new area for square ABCD, which is going to be 36. All right, moving on to number 32 now. So we've got a scatter plot showing 11 data points along with a line of best fit for the data. For how many of the data points does the line of best fit predict a y value that is less than the actual y value? Okay, so we're looking for how many points are above this line. And we see that that's going to be 5 points, so our answer for 32 will be 5. So 5 is the answer on 32. All right, moving on to 33. In the given equation, C is a constant. The equation has no solution. What's the value of C? In order for there to be no solutions, we need to have the same slope, but different y-intercepts. We have a y-intercept of 0 on our left side. Okay, we've got a y-intercept of 2 on our right side. We need the same slope, therefore C's got to be 1/4. Okay, so our answer there is 1/4 for number 33. All right, moving on to 34. What number is 1% greater than 7,000? That's going to be 7,070. Okay, you can multiply 7,000 by 1.01. That's ultimately going to get you 770. Okay, you can use a calculator on this section. So, yeah, 34 is a really easy question. All right, moving on to 35. All right, so we got 35 and 36 are going to refer to the following. We got a percentage of components in a liquid mixture by volume. Now, if you were really crunched for time at the end of this section, you could probably skip over reading a lot of this and end up being fine, but I'll read through it just because you guys might want me to. All right, so we've got percentage of components in a liquid mixture by volume. We've got components A, B, C, and D. A liquid mixture is composed of 4 components. The table shows the percentage by volume of each component. The volume of each component prior to mixing is the same as the volume of that component in the mixture. A procedure can be used to extract the individual components that combine to form the liquid mixture. When the procedure is applied to extract the components in the mixture, a portion of the volume of the components may be lost. If the volume of component B in the liquid mixture is 1 milliliter, what is the total volume in milliliters of the liquid solution? All right, well, we know if our volume of component B is 1 milliliter, then our total number of milliliters in our solution has to be 4 because we need 25% of our total solution to be component B. Okay, so we know 25% as a ratio can be represented as 1 over 4. Okay, so therefore, since we already know we have 1 milliliter of component B, so I'll put comp B, 1 milliliter of component B, we would need to have that split up over 4 total milliliters in order to get that 25%. So our answer there has got to be 4 for our total volume of milliliters of the liquid solution. All right, moving on to question 36. The procedure was applied to a new sample of 9 milliliters of the liquid mixture to extract component C. Due to the loss of volume from the procedure, the extracted volume of component C was only 90% of the original volume of this component. What was the extracted volume of component C in milliliters? So what we want to do here is use canceling of units to make sure we're getting to our right answer. So our final answer is going to be the extracted volume of component C. We're starting with 9 milliliters of the original liquid mixture. So I'm going to put 9 milliliters liquid mix, okay, for the liquid mixture. Now we need to cancel that and end up getting to component C. Well, we know that component C is 20% of that liquid mixture. So we're going to multiply them by 0.2, okay, and that's going to be component C, okay, going to be milliliters, obviously, of component C over the milliliters of liquid mixture. Okay, so now we're going to cancel out that liquid mixture then. Okay, when we multiply this, we see we're going to be left with 1.8 milliliters of component C, so milliliters of component C. Now from there, we have to multiply by 0.9. Now the reason we have to multiply by 0.9 is because only 90% of that original volume of component C is in the extracted volume. Okay, so from here then, we're doing 1.8 milliliters of component C times 0.9. Okay, so times 0.9. And when we do that, we're ultimately going to end up getting times 0.9, and we can go ahead and put this in our calculator. I believe it'll be 1.62, but I'll just check with my calculator. Yes, that's going to get us 1.62. So 1.62 will be our final number of milliliters in that extracted volume of component C. So our final answer is 1.62. All right, moving on to question 37. The functions f and g are defined above where b is a constant. If f of x times g of x is equal to, and then we've got this equation, what is the value of b? All right, well, we know if we take this minus 3x squared, there's only one way to get an x squared term when multiplying f of x times g of x, and that's b of x times negative 9x. Okay, so we could write this out as negative 9x times bx is going to equal negative 3x squared. Now, we can go ahead and rewrite negative 9x times bx as negative 9bx squared equals negative 3x squared. Now, if we divide each side then by x squared, divide each side by x squared, then what we're going to get is negative 9b equals negative 3. Well, from there, if we divide each side by negative 9 to isolate x, or I'm sorry, to isolate b, if we divide each side by negative 9 to isolate b, we're going to end up with negative 3 over negative 9. Our negative signs are going to cancel, and now we got 3 over 9. Well, that means b then equals 3 over 9. We know 3 over 9 is 1/3, so our answer there is going to be 1/3. All right, moving on to number 38 now. So we've got a rectangular mirror shown above has width 3 feet and length 5 feet and is surrounded by a mosaic border with a width of x feet. If the area of the mirror with the border is 35 square feet, what is the width x in feet of the border? All right, so we know our inside width here is going to be 3. So I'll go ahead and mark that. Okay, and we know our length on the inside is going to be 5, so I'll mark that as well. Now we also know that the total area, and I'm going to put this area that I'm referring to in green, so all of this, okay, everything inside of that green box is our area, and we know that that's going to equal 35 square feet. All right, well, from that, what do we know? Well, we know factors of 35 are 7 and 5, right? Now, the way that we can solve this easily is if we recognize that we need 7 times 5, well, we see that we're going to have this length x, right? That's going to be applicable on our length and our width. So ultimately, what we can see is that as we increase our width, our length is going to increase by the same amount. Okay, so from that, we know that if we increase, in order to get this 7 and 5, we obviously have to increase both our length and our width. Well, we have to increase our length then by 2 to get to 7. We got to increase our width by 2 as well because they have to increase by the same amount to get to 5. Well, now we have 5 times 7. We have our area of 35. And now we see then that this length here, this entire length, is going to be 5. Okay, so from there, we can easily solve for x because we see that we have 3 as the length in between these two x's. Thus, x plus x, which is 2x, has to equal 5 minus 3, which is 2. So 2x equals 2, x equals 1. So our answer for 38 is 1. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, make sure to like and subscribe. In addition to that, if you're gaining value from my content, please consider donating. It helps me to be able to continue to put out these videos for free. In addition to that, if you're looking for private SAT prep, college admissions, consulting, or college essay editing, be sure to check out my website. The link is in the description.